Did you know that the infusion pharmacy market is expected to grow to $20 billion by 2027? And maybe you're thinking to yourself, will that go in my back pocket as a pharmacist? And you'd be right, because infusion pharmacists are paid more than the average pharmacist. Well, in this video, we're going to be talking about infusion pharmacy and talk about the salary, the job satisfaction, the job market demand, and the flexibility of this career path. Hey there, I'm Alex, and I want to separate fact from fiction about this career path and help you discern what career paths are right for you. And in this video, we're going to be diving deeper into some details about this profession and share with you our knowledge and research on how we've helped pharmacists transition into careers that they love. So what does infusion pharmacy even do? Well, sometimes it's called home care, sometimes it's called home care pharmacy, infusion pharmacy, sometimes it's called specialty pharmacy or oncology pharmacy, and it's a blend of things. But I like to think of infusion pharmacy within a circle that includes specialty pharmacy, which we'll include in other videos. Check out links below to those career paths. Essentially, infusion pharmacy is the delivery of care of medicines that are infused within patients. It could be nutrition support, it could be chemotherapy, mental health treatments, oncology, infectious diseases, just to name a few. A typical day in the life of an infusion pharmacist, of course, is making medicine, it's approving medicine, it's dispensing drugs, it's advising nurses, physicians, other healthcare practitioners about the use of medicine in different disease states, clinical monitoring, care planning, assessment of care of these kinds of patients. Infusion pharmacists can work within hospitals, healthcare systems, community practice settings, specialty pharmacy, all sorts of different settings. We don't know how many pharmacists are practicing here, but we do know from a few sources that there's approximately about 1,500 infusion pharmacies in the United States. There isn't a specific board certification for infusion, but we do know that many of them get a board certification in oncology. Typical job titles include home infusion pharmacist, clinical infusion pharmacist, and then infusion pharmacist. You could also argue that other titles are like oncology pharmacist that does a lot of infusion type care. It's a blend, and you'll see this in other videos, but basically in pharmacy, we're really bad at naming the things that we do. I mean, case in point, ambulatory care. What the heck? No one else calls it that. It's primary care. Guys, come on. Let's talk about salary. How much can you make? According to our research on ZipRecruiter, the average salary was $132. So this is a role that you can get into without residency or certifications and get paid on average more than the average. Very nice. Of course, the highest paying jobs are on the West Coast and California in particular, because everything is more expensive than California. According to salary.com, the average range from $137 to $155. It's a pretty healthy range. We found one job in Santa Ana, California that was getting paid $74 to $80 an hour. Very nice. Another job that was a little bit lower in Washington, starting at $59 to $91. That's a huge range. You definitely have some negotiation power here. So for infusion pharmacists, I'm going to give your salary score a very healthy 8 out of 10. I don't normally rate clinical pharmacy career paths this high. And it's even kind of a weird stretch to call this clinical. I mean, we're going to talk about how to get into it in just a little bit, but like to see it this high in comparison to the average when things like neurology or psychiatry has a lower average salary, I love that. I love that you guys are getting paid this much. So that's why I get such a high score for salary. So are infusion pharmacists happy with what they do on a day-to-day basis? Let's talk about satisfaction. Now, we didn't find any published papers about burnout, work exhaustion, workload in infusion pharmacy, but we did find something that I think is important, and that's patient satisfaction. According to one association study for patient care, they found that patients were satisfied 98% of the time. You will not find that high of a score in other sectors of healthcare. This is incredibly high. This isn't a one-for-one comparison. It's a little bit of a leap, I have to admit. But I tend to think that when patients are happy, the people providing care are happy. Because the opposite, I think, is true. When patients are not happy with the care they're getting, it's very likely that the providers are also not happy about it either. One multi-centered study actually found that patients were satisfied with their care 93% of the time. And one quote from this study was, "Pharmacists are always courteous and helpful." I like to think that's true for like every pharmacist, but like, let's be honest, guys, most healthcare systems make us burned out and in turn make us not want to be as helpful as we know we can be. That's a workplace problem. That's not a you or an individual problem. Now, we know that in general, pharmacists are burning out at about a rate of 60%, and that's across multiple, healthcare systems. And home infusion often exists in multiple different settings, and so one could potentially conclude that there is a high burnout rate in this profession, but that's true everywhere. One study we recently looked at that I believe included home infusion in their study was in North Carolina, and they found that 55% were at risk of burning out, which is slightly lower than the average, which is nice, but at the same time, I don't know, take it with a grain of salt. We don't have conclusive evidence just for home infusion by comparison to others. I like looking at Glassdoor for individual company analysis, and according to a few places, they didn't get the greatest ratings that I like to see. I love seeing companies over a 3.5. That's like a 70%, which is passing. At Vital Cares, out of just a really measly 19 scores. There was a score of 3.6. Not that great. And Emerita was even worse at 2.6. This is really not that good. It's a pretty bad score. It's barely passing 50%. We also like to look on Reddit to see what people are saying about their jobs, and pharmacists had some pretty good things to say. They overall were reporting that there's a great mix of clinical work and that they report good hours, nice shifts. Quote, "It's a good hybrid between retail and clinical because you get to work with patients, usually closed door via phone, and use clinical skills for things like TPN adjustments, vancodosing." Another one said no holidays. So nice. Given these factors, I'm going to give the satisfaction score for home infusion pharmacists a healthy 7 out of 10. Let's talk about job demand. So, are there hundreds of opportunities? Well, maybe. We did a deep dive into the job market and we found some pretty decent options. If you go to Indeed.com, we found over 300 jobs there for pharmacists in Infusion Pharmacy. That's a pretty decent amount. And on ZipRecruiter, we found almost 400 jobs with salary starting at over $120K. With these sub niches, though, you have to take this with a grain of salt because a lot of these positions are a blend. Like, it's not just infusion pharmacy. Like, we found some job titles like ambulatory care or retail. I shared at the beginning that the market is projected to increase, a $20 billion market in just home infusion pharmacy by 2027. That demand is, I think, only going to continue to increase as we are seeing more and more of these kinds of medications being produced by pharma companies because of the high demand for these kinds of roles, as well as the profit margins. Take that with a grain of salt for the ethics. We did find a few jobs that had bonuses for signing on, which I take that as a sign as that these are in-demand jobs, albeit that they're not the highest bonuses that I saw in the market. The other factor for job demand that we like to look at is the number of applicants for jobs. And while we don't have published data, we can see on LinkedIn how many other people apply to them. And you may be surprised how little people are applying. I said it like that. One job had no applicants for a remote role, which I think is kind of insane, while others reported 10 and 5 applicants for these jobs. Not a lot of competition, which is fantastic. Let's give demand a score. So there's not tons of jobs. There's definitely in the hundreds, which is very nice. There's not a lot of competition for these, and there's also some sign-on bonuses. And we also know that the market is likely to grow in the coming future. And so for that, I'm going to give the demand score actually a pretty healthy 8 out of 10. And now let's talk about flexibility. This is the fun and magic factor. This is the reason why I think pharmacists are leaving jobs and seeking new ones. What's it like? How easy is it to get into? Is it easy to get out of? Are the schedules good? Is it remote possibility? Let's go into what we found. Most of these jobs are 8 to 5. That is amazing. Pharmacist schedules in most places are all over the place, making home life and social life a real challenge. But being able to get 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, no weekends, holidays off. Mwah, chef's kiss. I love it. There are sometimes some on-call responsibilities, which isn't always the greatest. And often what we're finding more and more for these roles is that they're seeing remote roles. I didn't think that would have happened in this. You know, traditionally, I have to admit, like, I know I'm biased, okay, but I remember getting taught that infusion means you are in an infusion center. You are the one making the medicine, which is a really hard skills, based career. And I knew I was never going to do it because I couldn't freaking make chapstick in lab, okay? Was not good at that stuff. But there's more and more clinical roles, which is allowing for hybrid and remote positions. Fantastic. How easy is it to get started? I would say pretty easy. Out of 10 jobs that I reviewed, only 3 of them required a residency or a board certification. That is fantastic, my friends. It means you don't need experience to get into this field. You can get on-the-job training. You can do this. You know, if you feel like that's not possible for you, I would highly encourage you to check out our community. We have a private community where pharmacists just like you, who are amazing, cool, and kind people that are on the same journey as you, seeking a career in life that they love. We do weekly workshops on Thursdays talking about all things job careers. It's free to join. We just ask a few questions before you join, and we'd love to help you out in your career's journey. Infusion pharmacists can often go out of and back into infusion, like they can get into hospital, they can go into ambulatory care, they can get into community, or just anything really. So it's not hard to get in and out of, and there's lots of opportunities for you in this space already. Given these factors, given the great schedule and the low competition and the remote and the hybrid, man, I'm giving this score an awesome 8 out of 10. All right, let's recap and give Infusion Pharmacy a final score. For salary, we said it was a very healthy 8 out of 10 because the average is higher than the average pharmacist for any other career path, and it's higher than lots of other clinical career paths that doesn't require residency often. For satisfaction, it got the lowest score here at a 7 out of 10. There are reports of burnout, but patients are often highly satisfied by their care. We gave demand a 8 out of 10 because we do see hundreds of jobs available right now online. And we also know that the market is likely to grow over the coming years. And then finally, we gave the flexibility an 8 out of 10 because of the Monday through Friday schedule, remote is a possibility, and it's easy, somewhat easy, to get in and out of this profession. That gives Infusion a final score of a very healthy 8 out of 10. So if you're an infusion pharmacist, are we on the same page? Was I too generous? Was I too harsh? I'd love to know your experience in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and until I see you in the next career path or other video here on YouTube, thanks and take care.